Did you know if you drop a like and subscribe in the next 5 seconds, nothing will happen but it will put a giant smile on my face? Fortnite Chapter 3 Season 1 is already 67% complete, with only 35 days remaining until March 19th when Season 2 releases. With that said, and with the feud clearly continued from the Chapter 2 finale cinematic called The End between the Imagined Order and the Seven, with both factions trying to set up base and dominate or expand over the entire island, let's just say we not only know in today's video what all of the next plans are for them, which based off many build-up map changes and developments or even teasers or Easter eggs are pointing toward a Final Showdown v2 between, well, the Seven controlling a robot and the Imagined Order controlling a Devourer monster. What if I told you we're not only going to be clearly breaking all of that down and what's going to be happening now in this final 33% of the season, but believe it or not, insiders are coming out potentially having information about how the event's going to be happening, which we're also going to be reading out to you and showing in today's video. So with that said, I know that sounds good, make sure you're doing yourself a favour, sit back, relax, grab your favourite snacks, stick around, watch the full video. And speaking of favours, one you can do me, considering this is 100% free to do, is enter code FM1 inside the Fortnite item shop right now. By entering code FM1, you're not only going to be putting a giant smile on my face, but also potentially cheering up my pug Gus after discovering and being kind of sad about the fact he looks like a baby Columbo. He also knows that 70% of you watching right now aren't subscribed, and speaking of subscribing, we're getting incredibly close to 2.4 million subscribers, so if everybody hits the big red button right now, we'd be there in no time. And of course, don't forget this benefits you too, as I gift different subscribers every single day here on this channel, so if you want to receive a gift in the very next video potentially, make sure you're subscribing to the channel with all notifications turned on, and then comment your Epic Games ID down below, so perhaps you could be gifted in the very next video in front of hundreds of thousands of eyes to see. But with that said, now enough messing around, we need to dive into everything to do with the Fortnite Live Event gameplay for Chapter 3 Season 1 and all the inside information, so make sure of course you don't go anywhere.
Don't go anywhere.
I'm not, I'm sitting on my
Don't
back.
go anywhere.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to quickly mention before we hop into all of that juicy intel, is not only if you see on the community tab of my channel this giveaway, we're currently running it right now with an extremely large prize of a PC worth $4,000. I also posted this to my Twitter too if you follow me over there, that's now verified in the video description down below. But speaking of another platform that I've recently started posting on different content, IRL and also Fortnite, even revealing my face, is my Instagram, which I'll have in the pinned comment of this video, and again also the video description. But with that out of the way now, the first things to mention of course, rewinding the clock to the start of Chapter 3, considering the end event when it did occur, everything sorta did happen fast that we weren't expecting anyways, and despite one of the surprises being Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson being underneath the mask of the Foundation, taking off the visor for the first time, of course a cool little Easter egg which may be a skin even in the Chapter 3 Season 2 Battle Pass, considering it's not in Chapter 3 Season 1's, is this variant of Jonesy that got captured by the Imagined Order. And fun fact too, another skin that could be in the Chapter 3 Season 2 Battle Pass is of course Gunner, which is now the boss that everybody knows to be located at Covert Cavern. This was the dude that flicked the switch to try and eliminate John Jones, but then the Foundation swooped in and saved the day. And you may be wondering, how is all of this relevant to how we're continuing now, especially onto a live event since Chapter 3 started and how it's ending in the near future? Well, of course, if it wasn't already obvious, despite us getting revealed to the location of the Seven's headquarters in this Chapter 3 Flipside dimension, finally despite us knowing about them ever since Chapter 1 Season 4, since the Visitor arrived in the Meteor for the first time creating Dusty Divots, of course with us knowing this new location of the Seven and the fact the Foundation survived, well, the flooding process of where they went into in between islands or the bridge, as of right now there's been no trace of Dr. Slone actually being on this island, despite it being implied through her new style in one of the crew packs that did release for January, being Winter Dr. Slone. And let's just say, despite us not seeing her as a boss or an NPC on the island in-game, it's safe to say her intentions for the Fortnite Island or toward the Seven haven't changed, as the codename for Winter Dr. Slone in itself implies it through the word traitor being directly attached to her as a character. Also a quick important recap for those that don't know why she's a traitor. Well, we believed in the Operation Skyfire Live event she was on our side trying to, well, destroy the mothership and make sure that the last reality was completely eliminated from our Chapter 2 island or dimension. And with the discovery of Kevin the Cube or Kevin the Cubes all being inside the mothership itself, she did not want us to return when the bombs were about to explode, but we did. And to be honest, this created even more of a problem for Slone, considering, well, it rained cubes down onto the island, being the theme overall of Chapter 2 Season 8 Cubed, and with her being a traitor realistically coming back to bite her, despite it being obvious obvious she still opposes the 7, and this is going to be tied into the next live event that happens, considering Aya are setting up base not only at Covert Cavern, but in several areas around the map, and even trying to dig up Devourer remains, or try and find the Catus Cave, being codename for the Devourer, that's currently in the game's files, even with some codename Catus Roars or Distant Groans, meaning that there's another one underneath the Earth's surface of the island, which, considering they've specifically described it as Distant Groan, could mean it's that far underground this Devourer located that it's in between of both islands, being the bridge. After all, we know the Imagined Order are not only drilling to find something specifically and have found the remains of one Devourer monster, or the one from our Chapter 1 dimension, as we can tell from the skull cracking structure of where the sword actually skewered through, and we could clearly see in Chapter 1 Season X. Despite this landmark Easter egg or even structure being revealed and what's in the files too, with everything to do with the Catus or Devourer monster, the most interesting thing to keep our eye on now in terms of future map developments and what's going to be happening because of this being implemented is not the smaller drills located around the map, rather so this very biggest one that's going underneath or directly down through the ground instead of drilling through walls on the map. And just to put in perspective how big this drill actually is, considering we can't see all of it and it does go into the ground itself, apparently this, what we can see underwater, is just the head of it. Of course, finding the Devourer monster in itself is one task, considering Dr. Slone would literally have to either capture it, as you can see from the concept trailer in the background, made by Foralzi, who will also be linked in the video description down below, as he's a very talented creator of Fortnite cinematics. But anyways, obviously then once capturing it, getting it on the IO's side to actually oppose the 7 or try and eliminate them, or even wipe out their base of operations entirely at the Sanctuary region of the island, it's safe to say Dr. Slone has the capabilities of creating some form of brainwash device based off the technologies used, or capabilities of creating such bombs to eliminate a giant mothership bigger than the island in such a short space of time, below Corny Complex, underneath the map in secrecy. And with this being one example of the capabilities or intelligence of the Imagined Order, who's to say that they don't create one big mind control device for the Devourer, or one of them once they find it? And I'm not going to take the credit for this, I did find a concept of that over on Reddit, which definitely does make sense, and considering the original Devourer failed in itself as a creature alone against the Mecha Team Leader robot that Singularity manufactured, being another snapshot version of the Paradigm, who obviously left the 0 point exposed, hence why the other members of the 7, or the Foundation specifically, are making her public enemy number 1 due to frustration of endangering this reality. Maybe perhaps for this reason the Imagined Order, or IO, whatever you want to call them, have acknowledged this and equipped the Devourer with more than just a mind control device to then slay whatever the 7 construct, or should I say reconstruct, in terms of a robot to fend off this giant monster. The initial Final Showdown battle was to gain power of the 0 point, or try and keep it stabilized anyways inside the vault, or not harnessed by the Devourer, which initially was the one of these two giant things to try and reach into the vault and get it, but the Mecha Team Leader actually managed to harness it, with us knowing based off the end event cinematic that the 0 point is stabilized underneath the ground, or should I say in the bridge between these two islands now that the flip side has flipped over. Maybe the intent to harness the power of the 0 point is the same, and perhaps they're creating these giant things or trying to control them to actually overthrow the opposing faction, each of them being the 7 and the Imagined Order, to then gain control of the 0 points. And despite us covering the Devourer monster and what could be going down with that on the side of the Imagined Order, as we speculate anyways based off what's been teased around the map and what's in the game's coding, of course since day one, if you haven't acknowledged, on the outskirts of the map anyways, there is the Mecha Team Leader arm that the original Devourer in the Final Showdown of Chapter 1 Season 9 ripped off and threw into the ocean. And despite this being a nod to our prior times, or should I say this particular event, the Final Showdown of Chapter 1 Season 9, with strong evidence that the Imagined Order are raising a Catus creature or Devourer monster themselves with a mind control device, perhaps like in this concept. Of course, with this being the case, the Paradigm, or should I say the Singularity, being another snapshot form of her, this particular member of the 7 anyways, considering it was teased by Dollar Mustard that they are the same person, she will not only have to manufacture at potentially the Daily Bugle kind of volcano location, of which looks exactly like the inactive volcano that was Pressure Plant from Chapter 1, with these small references being there that this is going to happen despite a new robot potentially being developed like in stages, through map changes that we can see progressively, again like in Chapter 1. Let's just say if the Imagined Order are upping the game anyways of the Devourer monster by equipping it with further things to actually eliminate the 7 in a particular huge battle or live event, the 7 may all have to work on this together, or Paradigm at the very least will have to go even bigger and better in terms of design than she did on the Mecha Team Leader, considering it did actually nearly lose. Despite this being potentially one theory about a brand new robot or giant thing manufactured anyways to take on a giant Devourer monster once unleashed by the Imagined Order onto the 7, we definitely know the 7 are working on something, with a new location soon to be implemented, perhaps even in 19.40, considering 19.30 will have gone live when you're watching this video, called the 7 Workshop. Who's to say that this isn't the bunker directly beneath the mighty monument being the statue of the Foundation, and that the actual Foundation statue in itself, displayed by Trimix, who made a very realistic looking concept live event, which you're seeing in the background right now, so credit to him on that, actually showed, but instead of versus the Devourer monster, was against a giant mecha team leader robot if this were to commence in some form. It's safe to say it's not entirely possible we see an in-game or gameplay live event this particular season, but maybe an event build up toward the end of it, kind of like in Chapter 2 Season 5 with the destabilization of the 0 point leading into the Zero Crisis finale at the start of Chapter 2 Season 6. Again, this would make sense considering Epic Games keep following the traits in chapters of the prior chapter that did release. For instance, Season 4 of Chapter 1 was superhero themed in Fortnite's regard anyways, no collaborations included, but then in Chapter 2 Season 4 was built off of 10 seasons later from this prior superhero Season 4 theme with a Marvel collaboration, and if we link that context to Chapter 2 Season 2, what went down there, a war waged between Ghost and Shadow, who's to say that this isn't clearly established or the theme of Chapter 3 Season 2, but between the Imagined Order and the Seven, furthermore than we already know it to be. So with that mentioned, we're going to end off today's video now with the most interesting part of it, apparently what is said to be some insider dialogue or kind of sequencing of gameplay that will be commencing for this live event leaked by an insider. As you can see, the text or DMs on screen right now that were leaked states the event starts, we'll have to head over to the Sanctuary where the Mecha Foundation will start to rise from the statue just like in the original Final Showdown event, and then we will see the Catus monster come out of Covert Cavern. Of course, Epic Games are forever changing what they have planned for the future, and perhaps this is the case with this, or this was just an idea, but either way only time will tell, and either way it's very interesting in terms of a live event that I'd love to see. Of course, feel free to let me know your opinions or live event theories in the comment section down below, or even intel that I haven't covered in this video. And speaking of this video, if you enjoyed and want to keep referring back to it, slap a like in it down below, and make sure you're subscribing to the channel with all notifications turned on so that you don't miss any of the important uploads now leading off until the end of Chapter 3 Season 1. But speaking of other videos or your next destination, make sure to interact with anything on screen right now. However, most importantly, hopefully I can catch you, yes you the individual still watching, I can see you, but hopefully in the very next video I do post on the channel.